Hello and welcome to the Delphian Podcast.
Delphian is an artist-led nomadic gallery focusing on emerging and early career artists.
Each episode will feature a different art world practitioner, from artists and gallerists to collectors and curators.
If you like today's episode, please like, share and subscribe.
Hello and welcome to the Delphian Podcast, and it's a bit of a special edition this time as we are in LA at Andy Dixon's studio.
Yes, we are.
Yeah.
Hello, thank you for hosting us.
No problem. Thanks for coming by.
Sorry we were so late.
Yeah, it's hard traveling without Wi-Fi. I can't believe you guys are trying to go without phone service.
Yep.
Yeah,
You guys are doing it.
And the traffic in LA is hectic too.
Yeah.
Nah, it's fine. No one ever says that.
So, amazing studio.
Thank you. Thanks. It's it's my pride and joy. I would live here if I was legally allowed to, but I think I would get kicked out if I tried.
Yeah. I mean, it's exactly what you would imagine from Andy Dixon's studio, I think.
Oh yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Cool. I'll roll with that. Yeah, I mean, this isn't the first studio I've ever had that has a kind of a hangout area. My studios up until this one have been like totally utilitarian, just like it's like just the other half of this room, just white with a chair.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Like I'd have studio visits, people would be like, what are we doing here? I'm like, come by for a bunch of beer. And they're like, where are we gonna sit? This is ridiculous. So yeah, it's the first studio that's big enough. I think it's because the other two studios that I've ever had are in two of the most expensive cities in the world, New York and Vancouver, and like the square footage for what I'm paying for this place, the square footage for my New York studio, I paid the same amount and it was like 400 square feet.
Wow.
Right.
Yeah. It's part of the reason why I'm here and not New York, really.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
So you're not from LA?
No, I'm from Vancouver. I'm Canadian.
Okay,
Yeah, the old Salgado connection.
Andy and Andrew and Andy,
And
both represented by beers who are friends of ours in London.
yeah, we're also Canadian.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, it seems like they represent a lot of Canadians.
Yeah, I know. They say it's not on purpose, but I don't believe it. I always thought Canadians feel kind of like an invasion of the body snatchers or something. You can't tell us from other people. We're just like sneak in. We're taking over the world. You guys just don't know.
So I thought So recently when I've been interviewing, I interview people for print a lot. A question that I've started off asking people, almost unintentionally, is just why you're an artist. It's a big question, isn't it?
It is a big question.
Yeah.
There's no way to answer that question without sounding sort of cliche or something, but truly, like, I just always have been. I'm just not good at anything else. Like, I've just been propelled to make things since I was like 10. You know, I realized I was different than other kids by like the amount of joy I would get from like drawing and like completing a drawing or something, you know? Where other kids would draw, I would just be like really, and my drawings weren't any better than anybody else's. I don't know if I was like you know, like quote unquote born with any like exceptional talent. It's just a weird satisfaction, I think, that I experience in like making something that other people that I thought everybody had until you get older and you start talking to people. Some people are just not interested in it. You know, like a school assignment where you have to make a fucking collage or whatever. And you're like, oh, I hate this. I'm like, this is the best thing ever. Look at this thing I made. I don't know. It's just, it's an impulse that I just always had, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it took a lot of forms. I was into music before I was into like visual art, or I was sort of into them, or I guess kind of in tandem, but I was more into music for quite a long time. But like, it's the same thing. It's just making something. I don't care if it's something you listen to or something you look at or something you taste, I guess. I've never been into making food, but I can imagine that being kind of a similar sort of impulse.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a terrible cook and I've got no interest in it.
Yeah, but, me too. Actually, me too. It doesn't bleed over into that. No. That's like fuel, strictly, for me. Whatever's the fastest way I can get food into my bloodstream. That's
you spend an hour making something and then 10 minutes eating it, and then someone shits it out. It's just a waste, complete waste.
Yeah, it's a bit of a waste. So I don't know if that answers your question, but I just think that I couldn't have possibly done anything. else. It's not really even that I wanted to do it. It's just that it's almost like you have to do it or something. Yeah. I tried to get a job once and I threw up at my desk. Honestly, I was like turning 30. I was going through this whole like, what am I doing in my life? Nothing had really taken off. I'd gone on tours and bands and I'd done a few solo shows, but nothing was really clicking. And I was like, fuck, I guess it's time to get a job. So I got like, and I had some experience with like Photoshop and InDesign and stuff like that. So I was like, I guess I'm just gonna be a graphic designer now. So I got a job at like this design studio in Vancouver. It lasted 9 months before like literally the stress of it and the hours of it. Like I cannot get up at 7 a.m. or no. It's just I'm not into it. It's actually not necessary. It's not really about like.
You need to go to bed earlier, mate.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's not really about the amount of sleep. It's about like waking up to an alarm.
Yeah.
I just can't do it. I feel like jet lagged or something if I'm like broken out of a deep sleep. So I was just at my desk one day and like I saw the project manager coming over and I just hated her and I hated the clients. I hated every single thing about this job, like not a single thing except making the thing, but then that was useless because it just goes through so many filters and you don't even talk to the client. You talk to a project manager who talks to the client and brings it back. So you have these ideas like, oh, maybe we could do this thing, and they're like, the client just said they wanted it like this. And like, it's not what is this job? And she was coming over to do more edits on some stupid fucking website I was working on, and I saw her walking over, and the stress of it like literally barfed.
Stress.
And it was just like, I gotta go, and I quit the next day, and then was like, I guess I should really put more time into this painting thing. I think it's the only thing I know how to do. So I quit my job and got a studio, like a proper studio, and was like, I should probably do this like more seriously because it's the only thing that doesn't make me want to barf, basically. And this was like 2 weeks before my wedding too. I was about to get, so I had to tell my fiance that I just quit my job and that I was going to be a painter, and that was what was going to go down.
So was that after the music stuff?
Yeah, totally. I think I was pretty much done playing music. I think I was like making some like production stuff. I would do like guest production stuff on people's records, and I'd be hired to do some remixes and stuff every once in a while. But for the most part, I was pretty much done with the music thing.
So so you came to painting like, I don't want to say late, but not early.
Well, it's hard to explain because while everything I just said was true, I also painted before this moment. I just didn't do it. It felt like a kind of secondary thing that I was
like
doing.
A hobby, maybe.
Yeah, but a little bit more than a hobby because I was doing shows.
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm.
But those shows were put on sort of, there's this kind of Venn diagram of like the DIY music scene and the DIY art scene, So it was like quite easy to just show work because I would be like in these sort of like weirdo bands and showing in like weirdo art spaces, and then the weirdo curator would be like, oh, I heard you, or who designed this, who did the drawing for the t-shirt? I was like, I did. Like, oh, I'd like to see more work. And then and it's a small city, as was in Vancouver. I mean, you kind of end up knowing everybody. So I actually ended up having like a kind of quote unquote solo show as early as maybe 2003 or something. But yeah, it was just like stuff I came up with in between touring and studio, like music studio stuff. It was stuff that I liked it, and I liked openings, and I liked making the work-ish. Maybe that was part of it, is that I actually didn't like the process of actually making the work. I just liked having it done. And yeah, so I lost my thread there, but I guess, it was just stuff that I was doing in between touring, really. Yeah. And then I sort of so when this happened, when I barfed at my desk and I had this sort of like existential breakdown, I thought, well, it's funny, I've been trying to do this music thing for this long, I'm like 30 now, but this other thing, this painting thing or drawing or whatever I was doing, it was sort of a mix of both, I would sell out every show. And I was like, I've never even put any energy into this thing. It would just be a gallery being like, I was technically sort of signed to a gallery, quote unquote. and they would give me a show every 2 years, I think. So I only did 2 shows with them, but both times like, oh, you want to do a show in September? And I'd go like, yeah, okay, and I would just go to my dad's place and like make work in his basement, and then, but I wouldn't be doing it around the clock. I wouldn't do it unless there was a show coming up. But it would always sell, and I would be like, oh, cool, that was fun. Anyway, I'm going back on tour, and I'm gonna do this thing. And so during this existential breakdown, I thought to myself, what if this thing seems to be kind of like going along on its own? What if I like took the energy I'm putting into this music and I just like put it all in? Like, how far could this thing go if I concentrated on it? So that's what I did, and it kind of took off pretty quick because all the pieces were already in place. It's not like I just was like, hey, everybody, I'm a painter now. I was already doing it. It was like paving the runway. And then one day I was like, okay, I think I'm ready to take off in this plane,
Yeah. You said that you didn't enjoy the process of it so much. Does that change? That
has changed. I do like the process now, luckily. That's a good question. Why didn't I like it? I think I didn't like it because I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do yet. So it felt clumsy. Like nothing looked the way I wanted it, like that it would have looked in my head. I was trying to force ideas. I was trying to force certain aesthetics that maybe just weren't coming naturally. I wasn't doing it right, or it's just that that's why I wasn't liking it. This sort of frustration of not being able to actualize the thing you want to have it look like. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but that's just practice, right? I mean, you just throw yourself in, and I was like, I knew that. I knew that that's what it was like, because that's how it worked in music too. I mean, starting your first band, it's like it doesn't sound the way you want it to sound, and it takes a long time for it to work. But I had exercised that muscle enough in bands where I was like, I think I get it. After playing music for 10 years, it's like, okay, I get it. You just gotta practice your ass off and think about music in a different way, and maybe open yourself up to I don't know, kind of like letting go of like a super specific concept you might have, because sometimes your tools, be that your body or your either your fingers on your guitar or your fingers on your paintbrush, maybe they don't do what you expect them to do all the time, and maybe you kind of gotta let that be part of it and like kind of channel it almost, or something like that, and let it be what it is. And so probably during this existential breakdown, I realized that was part of it too. I should probably stop just trying to be something that already exists. Like, oh, I want to be David Shrigley. I want to be Bas. I want to, maybe I should try, taking those things like a lot, like wear those things a lot less on my sleeve and use them more as like garnish on something that I come up with on my own.
So what forms was the work taking back then?
Back then, it was like quite strictly. It was like quite like drawing with like text. There would almost be like a punchline to them.
Right.
Yeah, it was more about the concept than it was the execution. You know what I mean? It was there would be a joke in it of some kind. I was also it was kind of all over the place. I mean, it's the same when I was a teenager into music. It'd be like, this is our ska song and this is our hardcore song, like, because you just like it. You're just like, oh, I just discovered noise music. Now it's put this noise piece in the middle of the song, like. You just fucking throw everything at the wall and see what sticks, And I was doing that in music too. I mean, in art too. Just like, oh, I just discovered Cy Twombly. I'm just gonna put some action painting like scribbles onto this thing, so it's like David Shrigley, but it's also got this like, abstract expressionist twist to it or whatever, because I just discovered it. Even though those things don't go together, I'm trying to smash this shit all together, but it doesn't really work that way,
Well, I don't know. Do you think that kind of wild process of experimentation led you to discovering what your style was?
Of course. I wouldn't be here without all of those like failed experiments, right? Yeah. That's the thing that people don't understand about painting. That it's like people only see these works that are on the walls. They don't see the 10 years of mistakes it took to get there,
Yeah. So I teach a class now.
Oh yeah.
At university, and the other week they were asking me like, how do you discover, because they're studying illustration, they were asking me, how do you discover your style?
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I said to them. You just need to go a bit wild and just do all kinds of shit.
Yeah, just do some super embarrassing stuff that like you will totally regret later. but that's what it takes to get there, you know.
Yeah, fill a sketchbook of stuff that you don't expect anybody to ever see.
Exactly.
Just like throw it away or something.
Yeah, burn it. Totally.
Yeah, if I look back at work of mine from like 5 years ago, it's just the most cringe stuff.
I know.
I've
I
seen.
can't do it either. I know. And music was even more like that. I mean, because I started playing music when I was like 12, and I was playing in my first band when I was like 14. So like, the music you listen to when you're 14 is hopefully vastly different than what you do at 24.
Yeah.
So, you know, though even 1 year ago you're listening back and you're like, oh my God, this is so embarrassing. But that's the journey of it, you know. I think. I mean, yeah. I think it's even I think the question is framed wrong. Like, how do you discover your style? It's not you don't discover style. You develop it. You know.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not like a treasure map. You go, like you just wake up one day, you're like, oh, I discovered. I opened the door. There it was.
I found a new sound.
So tell us about LA. What's the LA art scene like?
Yeah.
We haven't been here long. We're not here for long.
I love it. I mean, I feel very at home here, and I think something really cool is happening in LA right now. I think that part of that has to do with New York just becoming too expensive. I know a lot of artists have come out here. Like we already talked about it before the interview, but my studio is like quite big, and LA just is known for space. I mean, it's like the desert. I mean, there's kind of infinite space. It goes on forever, and there's something really cool about that. I think my work is scaling up. I think my ideas are scaling up here. I think I see other people's work doing the same thing here. Who came from New York, where their studio was maybe 200 square feet or whatever, you know, and yeah, I mean, honestly, it's even like the simple things like the weather. I feel like makes it feel like I just come to work every day. Every day is the same. Every day is 20 degrees, and I come to work. I mean, because I lived in New York for a bit, and I mean you have to consider the season when you're working, you know. I mean, there could be a foot of snow outside, or it could be like 45 degrees with 100% humidity. I mean, you can't do anything in those days. So I feel more productive here. I think just like, I mean, you guys are from London, I was from Vancouver. It's the same weather. Like that lack of vitamin D is real. Like the like 6 months of gray is intense. Yep. Now every day I get up now and I'm just like, oh, it's just another sunny day. You stop thinking about it. It's just every day is sunny, and except for the like 3 days you guys have been here. Like pouring rain. I swear to God, it does that 3 days a year.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, and I love it. I love the people. I think I don't know. This is sort of like a silly generalization, but I do feel that it's sort of true in that because I was born and raised in Vancouver, I ingratiate a little more smoothly into LA life than I do New York life. I think there really is this divide in the sort of like even just sort of mannerisms and sort of way one goes about their day between an East Coast thing and a West Coast thing. They're so far apart from each other. And East Coast is very academic and it's like very institutional and it's intense for me. And I think West Coast sort of has this cliche of being like, it's like stoner culture, you know? It's like a lot more laid back here. And I think I just have to accept that's maybe a little bit more who I am, you know? Even if I don't want to be, it's just how I grew up. And New York was just a bit, there's like this alpha energy like constantly, and I'm just too much of a beta to survive in New York. I was like, let's all just calm down. So for me, LA feels like a really good fit. And I'm meeting people in a way I didn't really meet people in New York, I think. That's on me. It's not a judgment on New York. I mean, New York is fucking amazing. I love that city. It's just, I'm finding for me, I'm feeling better about being here than I ever did there.
And what about the gallery scene between like East Coast and West Coast?
I mean, I think there's a funny rivalry almost in a way, which is, it's nonsense. I think it's playful. I mean, I don't think anyone takes it too seriously, but I think things are happening. I mean, Freeze is happening this
Yeah.
week. The first Freeze in LA. It moved from New York to LA actually. So, I mean, that might be the sign of something. Not that I don't know. It's funny how the conversation always goes that it's like they have to be pitted against each other because the competition is obviously it's not. I mean, I love both cities, but I think that LA is just on an upswing. It just feels like something like a lot of galleries are opening here. I'm starting to work with this gallery called OTI, which is actually like a Hong Kong gallery that just opened up like a massive location here. I've seen, the galleries just feels to me like this is like again a pretty lame generalization, but I do think it's sort of true, is that New York is so institutional. Like I still feel like it has this like there is like a proper way to go about doing things. You have to have like if you want to run a gallery, it sort of has to look a bit like this. Whereas LA really does have this sort of Wild West, like I opened up a gallery in my kitchen, and it kind of reminds me of like the DIY like punk scene that I grew up in. It's kind of like an anything goes attitude here that just suits me a bit better. It's like it's almost like artists are just doing like weirder stuff out here because no one's told them that they can't do it or something, you know?
Yeah. Maybe New York was like this.
It probably was, exactly. It's probably, maybe in the 80s, it probably, you had Warhol and Basquiat just being like, this is just what we're doing. Yeah, totally. Yeah, so maybe something like that's happening here now. I don't know. I'm old enough to have seen a bit of a pendulum swing of coolness between the two cities, like go back and forth, you know? So I think it's just LA's time. We'll see. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't know. Having Freeze come through seems kind of like a sign that something that I'm probably right. I don't know.
So your next show's in New York.
Yeah.
Your last one was in London.
Yeah.
Or at least the last one I saw.
Yeah.
Do you approach each city differently, or do you make
like the work?
Yeah.
That's a good question. I don't know if that's maybe in the back of my mind, like what works in a city. I don't think so. I think that London had a lot of the patrons' homes pieces in it, and that was honestly just a sort of matter of timing. I mean, I can only get so many of those images from my old patrons to make the work, and it just collected enough for that to work. And I knew I couldn't do that for New York because I don't have enough new. So I'm doing something else for it. And then the next show after that's going to be Hong Kong, and I might do more patrons' homes if I can get more images from that. So it's almost just a cycle of ideas, like of imagery. Like if I'm doing, because this one has like more of the Christie's pieces in it, which weren't in London at all. I'm sort of working with 3 or 4 different ideas that I'm just sort of pacing out, I guess. Depending on which one, I guess, and maybe part of it is which one makes the most sense for the city. But I don't think that's a very big consideration. But it's probably there somewhere. But for the most part, it's just a kind of cycle. Like, well, I did that at the last show, so I'm going to do this other thing at this show, and then I'll go back to that one idea on this at the next one or something.
So Freeze is coming through next
Yeah.
week. How do you feel about art fairs in general, like the sort of scene?
I mean, they are what they are, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like I'm like, oh, fucking sick, like I can't wait for this art fair to come through.
Yeah.
But I also don't think I hate them nearly as much as I know there are some artists who just, like, hate them.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I'm pretty different on it, to be honest. Like I mean, I have fun. Sometimes there's some fun parties to go to. Sometimes you get to meet people who you've only met on Instagram. I think I'm just sort of like a bit of an optimist in general. So there are plenty of reasons to hate an art fair, but there are also reasons to like them. I mean, first time I met Salgado was, in Miami. We're like, oh, we're both at the place. Oh, cool. Thrush Holmes is there too. And like we're in this digital age where we connect with people through Instagram and whatever other ways.
That's how we first spoke.
Exactly, and fairs are a cool way to like reach out to some of those people. Like, oh, dude, are you going to Miami? Oh, we should meet up for a drink.
Yeah, there's often a lot more interesting stuff happening at the same time as the fair.
It's
in the same city.
Exactly. It's usually not really about the fair itself. It's sort of about just grabbing drinks and like talking art with like peers that you. It's sort of like music festival. It's like South by Southwest or whatever. You're like, sure, it's kind of an abomination in a way, but it's also really cool because when we would be touring through, we'd like play South by Southwest in Austin and be like, oh shit, like the band that's on our label that we've never met before is like playing down the street. We should go check it out. We should go, It's sort of a social thing more than it is about anything else for me. And I like that. I don't know. I like making art friends. It's nice. It's nice. I don't know. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I think some people don't like it. I think some people, like, we laugh, but I think there are probably people who are like, nah, I just do my thing. And like,
the Jackson Pollock type.
Exactly. Yeah. I just drink a bottle of whatever his drink was, gin or something, and like make the work and tell everybody to fuck off. I mean, that's cool too.
It's a fireplace.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, my best work comes out of talking with other artists about the work. Like that's what we're all. I don't know. We're all kind of a sounding board for each other.
Well, in that case, we're looking forward to seeing your next paintings after.
Yeah, exactly.
You make after this.
Totally.
Cool. Well, maybe that's a good place to end it. Unless there's anything else you want to add.
No.
Great. Well, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I'm glad we finally got to do this.